Welcome to New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. I'm your host, Sean. You know, Friday is a day that news goes to die. And why I'm bringing these two stories up is because they're very pertinent to the 2A. One is the collapse of society's issues we're having with banking. So in the 2A, if you haven't noticed and haven't been paying attention, right now there is a push from several credit card institutions to put, I don't know how to put it, store codes for gun stores or gun purchases, and they're set at certain price points. The idea is to be able to isolate and give this information, since they're private companies, directly to the ATF or the federal government or any other law enforcement agency. Discover is really bad about that right now, and they're continuing down that path. But Visa and MasterCard were doing it, and they stopped themselves from doing it. Now, Bank of America has been doing it. You can check out Mike from Guns and Gear, Mr. Guns and Gear. He was talking about this specifically. But with the collapse of SVD Bank, and now this is like the number 2 or number 3 bank, and the number 3 and 4 banks associated with this, again, this going on, has announced they're collapsing too, or the FDIC is taking care of them. Now, I have always said that the collapse, if it was going to happen, is going to happen because of the United States, not because of foreign entities. It's going to be because of government mismanagement or government stupidity or riotous leftists. That's the only way I can put it. And this story from Silicon Bank is a prime example. It's a woke bank that went woke and got broke, basically. And they've collapsed. There's something to the tune of $2 trillion or $2 billion. Yeah, $2 billion, not trillion. $2 billion tied up in this stuff. And the FDIC can only cover about 190 million or billion. No, it's 190 million deposits for these people. Biden came out this morning from his cave at 9 a.m. and said, hey, we'll take care of it no matter what. So all of us taxpayers are helping really wealthy financiers who use SBV, Silicon Valley Bank, for venture capital and the crypto stuff that, not necessarily Bitcoin, but some of the other coins and some of the exchanges. What's funny is this story has caused, or this incident, more correctly, has caused Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to rise today because they're seeing that banks are failing in the United States. In the same vein, on the same day, Jane Fonda was on The View. Now, I'm not a fan of her because I know her as Hanoi Jane, and I have enough Vietnam veteran friends and family that she's a communist anyway, and I don't want her around, to be honest. Suggest murder in response to overturning Roe versus Wade. Now, if you watch the clip, and Tim Pool, again, this is one of my main sources for information, is Tim Pool went on really hot and heavy on this, and he showed this in a skit, or not a skit, in a video where he commented on it. Now, what I'm commenting on, or what I think is going to do, is this is going to spark an idiot. Both of these things could spark an idiot. Okay? And what I mean by an idiot is they're going to go nuts, and they're going to do something stupid, and then lots of innocent people are going to die. Hanoi Jane actually advocating for murder in response to policymakers and their decision on Roe v. Wade, still a state issue. United States abortion laws are less restrictive than European abortion laws, so I really don't know what the hell their problem is. Again, I'm not a fan of abortion. Abortion, to me, is a subject that needs to be left up to the women. My choice ended when I didn't wrap up. So I don't agree with it. I do think it's murder. However, I'm not the one that's going to have to stand in judgment ultimately for these decisions. So I have to back down and shut the hell up. Just like everyone should do with the gun rules and gun laws. So what Jane has basically said, though, was that she was going to protest till the very bitter end. I'm all for protesting if that's what you want to do, Jane. My biggest problem is that you advocated for murder in a roundabout way. Not a roundabout way. You actually said it in the interview on The View. And when you start advocating for such things, you're going to get the people that think I stole all their spoons, or the government stole all their spoons, or that neo-Nazis are so prevalent that they gotta be dealt with. And sparking that level of fear is going to start a civil war. And between these two things, this definitely could cause a civil war. With enough bank collapse or enough societal collapse because of banks, if you're in a big, large city, sorry, I don't think you're going to make it. If there's a civil war, especially sparked by someone leftist like Jane Fonda, she's got another thing coming. Mostly because, yes, the left does have guns. I will tell you that as an ANCAP, so I don't really subscribe to the left and the right paradigm anymore. My guns are better, and I don't like her. I never have liked her, and it makes a damn good argument for us to have a free fire zone. Now, I'm not advocating for violence in any way. However, I am one of those people, just like everyone else, that will tell you screw around or fuck around and find out. Jane, you're messing with something that is very, very incendiary. Your comments are incendiary. And this is the type of thing that idiots go and do stuff like shoot up president or governmental baseball games where it was supposed to be a governmental, a friendly game of baseball that some idiot, Bernie supporter, decided to go out and stop Republicans because they're so evil. And this kind of rhetoric, when you've ratcheted it up to this level, Jane, you're basically advocating for something, and this wouldn't be allowed on YouTube. And I'm not even sure it'll be allowed on Rumble. For me saying you started a free fire zone, most of us are okay with that if that's where you want to go. I really hope you don't want to do that because this is a bad, bad idea. You're advocating for actual violence on the streets. And there's already enough violence with crime going the way it is. And with more and more of these banks in a hot seat and screwing up, there's a very, very large potential for violence, both at the governmental level and at the personal level. You deprive people enough of resources and they become desperate enough, bad things happen. And the last thing we need is any more kindling on the fire that is kind of already smoldering in the background. There's enough people pissed off left and right, both sides right now, that if the wrong thing is said or done at the wrong time, we're looking at bad things happening in a lot of places. And there's a lot more trained people than you would like to admit to, Jane, that own firearms that will not take a threat to their person lightly. I don't understand why you got away with it or what makes you think you can get away with talking like this on national television. You're advocating for the worst possible scenario. I still don't believe that the Chinese are going to roll into the United States. I still don't believe that the Russians are. I have always been a prepper, will always be a prepper. I do take my own personal responsibility and my own personal protection to the nth degree as much as I can. And I know I'm not the only one. I have a lot of friends and family that are in the same vein as I am. And that is a recipe for disaster for people like Jane who have no idea what kind of things they're about to unleash if they do continue down this path. As far as the banks, guys, is there going to be a run on the banks? It's possible. I don't think so. The reason why I don't think so is these are tech banks. These are venture capital banks. Most of them are West Coast banks. There's the other two that are looking at failing are New York banks. Yeah, there could be a cascading knock-on effect for banking in the United States. It, the conspiracy-minded people might think that this is a push towards a digital currency, and I can see that for sure. I don't think that is still something that our federal government is capable of doing. And what I mean by that is, imagine every transaction on planet Earth that an American citizen or business has to deal with. You being able to deal with that. Do they have the computing power and the storage power for that? Very likely they're getting to that point. That's why I don't think that the digital currency is a thing yet, but it will be in the future. Unless there's enough protest and people to say no. And as far as the banks, fractional banking has always been a sore spot for me. Fractional reserve banking, if you didn't know, means that any bank, and they deregulated it under Trump. I'm not saying it was his fault. It was something that people pushed him into. I still believe it would have happened regardless of Trump or not. What they did is they allowed checking and savings accounts both to be marked as the same, basically, for banking purposes, for the fractional banking purposes. Now, fractional banking purposes, why I say that is, and I say it with a kind of a want to spit after you say something so horrible, is they only have to have 10% of their deposits, or 10% of their resources as deposits to cover what they hand out. So that means for every 10% they have, they can loan out 100% more based on that 10%. So if you have $100, you could loan out 90% of that, so $90 of that, and only keep 10% and still be considered solvent as a bank. And I don't know any person other than a bank that can get away with that type of fraud. If I could go out and say, I'm going to go ahead and take my paycheck, which is like $2,000, and I'm going to say that I'm going to spend all but $250 of it. Okay? $250 of that means that I'm still solvent in the eyes of the fractional banking career. The other stuff can be written off or called whatever they want in the end and be bailed out by the Fed. And that's where we have a huge problem in banking. Where do I see us going in the 2A? So here, let's do another roundup on what's going on in New Mexico, because this is New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union. In New Mexico, we are in the last week of the session, the normal session in the Roundhouse. It looks like House Bill 9, which was the Safe Storage Act, has had a radical amendments added to it, which make it a heck of a lot more palatable. A couple things to think about with the House Bill 9 that it's already passed, that will go to the governor's desk, so this is a real thing now, is if you have a concealed carry, you can now go in and you are waived from a background check because you already went through that multiple times. It also means that they're looking at doing the 14-day waiting period. If that were to pass and you had a concealed carry, you would also be exempt from that in New Mexico. Both of those, I see gold in that I don't have to wait, but I also see the point of not having these anyway because it's just giving more government power anyway. They also added onto that if a third-party youth uses one of your weapons that isn't stored safely, you are liable for that. And that makes a lot of sense to me, given what's been going on in our world. At the same time, I'm not okay with that because you didn't control that. That's government getting involved again. The 14-day wait in New Mexico is still kind of shelved. It's not really making any ground. House Bill 101 looks like it was definitely, which was the assault weapons ban and the magazine capacity ban, looks like it is for sure shelved. Where they look like they're making inroads is in voting places or election places. You're not going to be able to open carry or conceal carry in those facilities. Those are the big rocks in New Mexico right now for the 2A. I don't see them getting too far ahead of what they've already passed. And I honestly think our governor is going to have to take that as a win and not call a special session, because with the banking stuff going on and everything else financially, she's going to be put on the hook for a lot of things, and that will be the pressure cooker that keeps her occupied away from our rights, hopefully, because there are bigger fish to fry. On the national level, the pistol brace ban, the ATF is fighting the Supreme Court right now because they say that they still have right to go ahead and change the law, and the Supreme Court has said no. There are people in our reps at the federal and state level, or at the federal level, I should say, have raised, in freer states, let's put it that way, have raised a court case against them, saying they don't have the power to change definitions and to do this without going through Congress, which I 100% agree with. I don't necessarily think that Congress even has that power, because these arguments were a long time settled. As I said in yesterday's podcast, or this morning's podcast, when I was talking about Jon Stewart's stuff, these rules are well regulated, is what he kept focusing on, meant that you were capable of using them efficiently, not that the military or the government could confiscate or stave off your rights so that you couldn't use them. We live in interesting times. I don't know what else to say about this stuff other than keep your powder dry, watch your bank account, be careful. If you have over $250,000 in an account, maybe move one of them to another account so that FDIC, the insurance, does cover that. It sucks to think that you're going to have to rely on the government to do that, but it's still better than losing it outright. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have $250,000 or $1 million or anything else yet. I do have multiple bank accounts, though. One for my business, and then none of them, that one's not associated with my actual personal accounts, and then my personal accounts. So what would I do? No financial advice here. Maybe take some of your assets out and turn them into hard currency, hard things that you can use, like gold, silver, alcohol, anything that would be a resource in a collapse. I don't think that's where we're going yet. It's inevitable, I think, that something bad will happen and there will be another black swan event in the United States. But I think we're a ways off. And this isn't me being optimistic. This is me looking at the entire battle space. So financially, when you see the Fed saying that they're not going to bail out the bank itself, but only go towards the depositors, that's a good sign. That means that the bank will fail, and it kind of needs to, because they did some shady stuff. Other banks, this is nowhere. It's close to 2008, the failure that we're having, but it is nowhere near that big yet. Could it get that big? We'll see what the knock-on effects are from these banks going under, because other banks will have invested in these types of things too. I personally am going to look at my personal banks and my business bank and see if they have any of this woke DEI bullshit, because I think that was a huge place and problem for these guys, why they collapsed. It's also said that Meghan and Harry, again, don't care because they're from the UK. They supposedly lost millions banking with this company. I don't really care if the rich go bankrupt. It sucks. It sucks for the business community. It sucks for the economy in general when people go bankrupt. But maybe it'll spark more hard work. And that's what we all need to get back to. Like, share, subscribe, be great.